All right, hello, AP World History students. We are going to do the wonderful and disturbing conclusion of lesson 111. Our topic has been the Mongols, and thus far to this point, we've learned about a few basics about Mongol society there in Central Asia and who this person Chingghis Khan was and how we can explain their incredible military success. I want to talk for a bit now. I want to analyze the violence that was characteristic of the Mongol conquests and talk about some transitions that took place after the death of Genghis Khan. And let's just name it, the Mongols had a reputation for incredible violence. Now, to some extent, get in line. What's the nonviolent society that we've studied thus far in history? I can't name you one. And, every empire uses violence as a way to enforce itself. And so it's a fair point to wonder, how exceptional the Mongols were in that regard. At the same time, some of the particular instances of violence that the Mongols employed were really striking. Even at the time, they were really striking. So I'll give you a great for example here, right? There's a city called Merv, or at least it used to be called Merv. It doesn't exist anymore now because of the Mongols. It was a trade post city along the Silk Road. Today it's in the country of Turkmenistan. We can see some of the ruins of Merv there. Now, when the Mongols under Chinggis Khan were moving into Central Asia, the rulers of Merv made this classic mistake, which was the Mongols sent this advanced delegation there to say, the great Khan is here, you have to surrender your armies and surrender your city to him. And the ruler thinks he's a tough guy, so he kills the Mongol envoys and beheads them and parades them around town and sends one of the heads back to Chinggis Khan. And Chinggis Khan at that point is like, well, this is ridiculous. In his mind, he says, I was just trying to talk to them, right? I was just trying to send a message that it's time for them to surrender. I was willing to be civil about it, which is basically, which is sort of true. Like basically, cities that would surrender to the Mongols immediately would more or less be treated humanely. And he says, this guy instead has to do this tough guy thing. And so now we need to make an example of this. Now we're going to kill everyone in that entire city. That's what's going to happen here. And so Chinggis Khan sends word like, well, you're going to get it now. All the people in the nearby area recognize that this ruler of Merv has totally blown it. So they try and hole up in the city. It's a little bit overstuffed and they can't really hold out for a siege. The Mongols besiege the city, but soon enough, the people inside surrender. And Chinggis Khan and the Mongols their orders are, we're going to go in, we want to find people in your city who are valuable to us. And what that means is not that you have money. They don't care if you're rich, because they say, well, then we'll just kill you and take your money. But that you have some special skill. If you're an artisan that can produce trade goods, that can produce stuff that's valuable, if you're a scribe that has some government function for us, well, then we'll take you, we'll enslave you, and send you to some part of our empire where we could use people like you. So they take 4 people out of the city, about 500,000 remain, and those 500,000 were killed in a matter of a day or two. And that might sound simple, but with pre-industrial technology, it is not, and it's sort of, the stories of it are disturbing. I don't know how much to get into it, but basically every soldier is told you're responsible for X hundred numbers of killings, and here's a bag that you can collect ears in to sort of turn in your quota for the day at the end of the day, and they're just cutting people's throats like you would slaughter sheep or cows at a for whatever when it's time for slaughter. It is it's kind of insane. Now for the Mongols, that violence had a function, which was, and now the next half dozen cities we go to are going to hear the stories of what happened to Merv. Maybe because we let a couple people scamper away to tell those stories, and they're all going to surrender. And then we don't have to go through all the trouble of fighting. And then we don't have to go through all the trouble of killing everyone either. But if you try and resist us, if you try and play tough guy with us, this is what will happen. In his analysis of this, Frank McGlynn, who wrote a book about Chinggis Khan, said, it's important to realize that Chinggis was permanently obsessed with the Mongols' paucity in numbers, which just means every time he went into battle, they had fewer numbers than their opponents. and hence the casualty lists. In his mind, it was the merest realism to reduce the numerical odds against himself by the massacre of all who would not surrender. There were never to be any prisoners unless they could be used as arrow fodder. Genghis Chinggis always allowed the pragmatism to trump concerns of humanity. So the luckless people of Balkh, like the luckless people of Merv, paid the price. He ordered all citizens of property to emerge from the city, ostensibly to assess the taxes they should pay to their conquerors, and then he massacred them all, thereby, in his mind, destroying any possible focus for future rebellion. He's like, I don't need the survivors of this city in the rear, worrying about them. If you cause a trouble like this for me, I will kill every single last one of you. And if you're cool with me at the beginning, I'll be extremely cool with you. It's a unique and novel approach. And if you're a person who believes that political rulers, even military rulers, should be moved by or concerned with questions of humanity, then this is probably very disturbing, probably rightfully so. Chingghis Khan died. After decades of these conquests and decades of expansion, he died, age 65. He had fallen ill. He fell off his horse. Kind of an ignoble end to this story. He was not that far from his home in Central Asia when he died, but he was returned to his homeland and buried anonymously near the mountain, the sacred mountain that's sacred to him and his people. Now, near the end of his life, he thought, as a lot of aging rulers do, about his legacy, who's going to get his empire after him. And he had a wish that, his oldest son would receive the empire, but there was too many whispers and rumors that he knew about that his oldest son was actually illegitimate. It wasn't actually his son. And so he says, well, how about my 4 sons will split the empire between them? But you can probably hear that's going to be a recipe for infighting. And I think it's fair to say there was always infighting. Like the end of Genghis Khan is the end of unity in the Mongol Empire. There's always going to be intrigues and infighting following that. There were 4 great Khans. We'll get into this more in lesson 112. There are 4 great Khans. There's one person named Ogadai Khan who kind of like sat over them all. Or there's 4 Khans who lead the 4 Khanate kingdoms. Ogadai sits above them all. And Ogadai was basically picked not really because he was the smartest or sharpest or most whatever. He was picked because he was agreeable. He was like the least offensive, He was like a get-along brother. Not that he's a fool. He wasn't exactly a fool. He wasn't sharp and he wasn't as ambitious. So for Ogadai, the question became, well, we've conquered this whole area of Jin China, the whole northern half of China that Chingghis Khan conquered. And now we administer this, right? This is a wealthy, advanced part of the world, northern China. What are we going to do here? There were some Mongols who told Ogadai that what we should just do is kill every Chinese person living there, at least every Chinese person who would stand in our way, and then we'll use it as grazing lands. We'll sort of almost expand the steppe into China and have this be a new steppe territory where we can graze our horses and use it for our own Mongol backyard. And Ogadai, he says, no, we're not going to do that. And he actually listens instead to some Chinese scholars and Confucians who say, if you just administer this territory, you can collect taxes from it, and you can become very prosperous that way, right? So rather than, just treat it as your garage, basically, like why not rule over it, govern it, and administer it? We Chinese have the record keepers and the bureaucrats you would need to do that, and we'd be willing to work with you. I'm sure that, we'll find out there's some grumblings and frustrations there that would happen. But Ogadai makes the decision that, we're not going to just turn this into our backyard. We are going to administer and govern over China, northern China, and later southern China. And I think it is a sign in the first decade after Chingghis Khan that the Mongols were moving out of that stage of straight conquest and into a stage of governance. Students, the last piece of Makeup Bit is to watch this cool TED Ed video, The Rise and Fall of the Mongol Empire, that will review the things that we've done and preview what's next. But thanks for getting caught up. See ya.